Arcachina, and things of that nature.
Right. So these people, these so-called elites, do you think that, you know, they are allowed to do a certain amount of evil in the world, but whenever entities in a high dimension want to use them, they could take over them like a robot? So let's say we think because it came from Obama, it's something bad, or it came from Steven Spielberg, or Star Wars came from this one, it's something bad. But when these people who do a lot of evil things, but when it's time, when the ancestors or the spirits want to use them, they will use them for something good, and we have to look beyond the messenger into the message because it's coming from the higher ups. Do you think like these people are being controlled right now to do the bidding for us? It looks bad, but they're really doing the bidding for us. Do you think that's a possibility?
I believe so. You go to L's Holy Injil, Revelations chapter 17. It tells you that the evil reptilian gave power to the beast, and the evil reptilian is also connected to the 200 fallen angels who are the cherubim. So when you talking about as far as who controls the energy extraction matrix,
right?
The Canaanite are the ones who control this whole system, and they're doing the bidding of a certain archonic figure and the archonic forces behind the scenes, or the unseen hand, or your so-called, you know, black nobility. The best way I can explain it is when you watch the movie Cabin in the Woods. You had the elite, you had these puppeteers underground in that movie. In order for them to basically maintain rulership over the planet, they had to sacrifice a certain demographic of people in order to maintain the material plane, basically. So I actually think the same thing actually takes place in real time when you're talking about sacrificing. So this is why you have a lot of trafficking and a lot of people coming up missing, a lot of people coming up dead. When you're talking about these psychological operations, they have to implement that form of degradation on the planet in order to stretch out the timeline on the cosmic clock. So they do that stuff on purpose.
Right. What message do you think? What message did you derive about animals from this movie?
As far as the deers or whatever, it's really just telling you connect right back to nature. That's what I got from it, because a lot of these the angelic forces, they connect with animals and they connect with children. So that's why the little girl, she had a veneration and she was connected to the deer, and they were basically leading her into the woods, and she actually found the bunker system. If she wasn't connected to the energy of nature, she at the end of the movie, she would have never found that bunker system. But since she was so tapped into the nature, she was able to create a form of survival.
People talked about some of the frequencies in the movies.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah. Touch on that.
Yeah, as far as like the frequencies, now we all know that, you know, they use weather modification weapons and frequency modification weapons. So that's all connected to the fact that these frequency modification weapons can create a P136 deletion syndrome, which basically dematerializes the two frontal lobes of the brain. So this is where you can get your whole concept of a zombie apocalypse, or you can get your whole concept of your anatomy breaking down when you talk about sun frequencies coming in, to where you're not reaping the benefits of ascension, because you have to have carbon, because these energies that's coming in, they can knock out the power grid. Is the same thing that sparks the soul of man through nitroids, which is basically Solomon's temple. So that etheric frequency can actually, you know what I'm saying, it can upgrade the body if you have carbon, or it can basically dematerialize the body if you're connected to the six ether recessive genetical traits. So that's why I said, when you look at the sigil system of the sun, that sunspot, it was showing you the dismantling of the six ether energy. So when you have these etheric forces coming in, operating on fractions of light, like I said, it can upgrade the spirit body, the spirit of Melchizedek.
Do you in terms of the ending of the movie, a lot of people was upset with the end of the movie. What was your particular thoughts about the ending of this movie?
uh, like I told somebody not too long ago, a lot of people, they was looking at the movie as far as a form of entertainment. I didn't look at it like that. I didn't care about the end of the movie or whatever. I
Right.
took the message and went on about my business. But the end of the movie, it was just showing you the little girl. She had a veneration for a certain TV show,
Yeah.
and she was saying like, "Oh, this is the last episode." But when I looked at that, I was like, "This is like last episode, last one." That was like basically saying like that's a codex for saying last warning. You know what I'm saying? That's what I got out of it.
Now we was just talking about the frequencies, and a lot's going on, and I want to ask you about DNA. Any messages you got from the movie about DNA, because that's a hot topic. But in terms of frequencies, a lot of people are reporting ringing in their ears. I don't know if I asked you this in a previous show, but moving into 2024 into 2030 and in the future, what is your thoughts on ringing in the ears and so many people reporting? People are even reporting different tones, like it'll go from a low pitch to a high pitch, like it's motherfucking making a song or something like that. What are your thoughts on the ringing in the ears right now in a society?
Well, from a spiritual perspective, when you hear tones and frequencies like that, you're supposed to put yourself in a state of meditation in order to connect whatever message that's being transmitted to you from the higher dimensions. So it can, like I said, it can be one of those things where it can be a frequency modification weapon that's basically trying to rewire the neurotransmitters and cause brain hemorrhages and things of that nature. Just like in I forgot what movie it was. I think the movie was called Cell. Everybody that was connected to all these technological devices, when these frequencies came in, it basically, the great majority of humanity, they lost control of their humanoid traits. It basically manipulated the cognitive abilities of humans, and they were banging their heads on the ground because of not the solar frequencies, but the technological frequencies. So it could be one of those things where it can be in a form of spirituality, when you're trying to connect with ancestors or whatever, or it can be one of those things where the government is using frequency modification weapons to basically carry out a certain agenda and to implement a form of depopulation, which goes all the way back to the Deagle publication that came out last year, when they said that when the sun is at solar maximum, it can basically cause a mass depopulation rate. Like I said, that's all. Like I said, it can be one of those things where it can be implemented by technology, or it can be implemented by solar frequencies. So the pitching in the ringing of the ears, it can be one of those two things.
Right. Wow. Now, what's your thoughts on I'm trying to think, what should I ask? Your thoughts on, you talked about the sun, and you talked about the 6 ether beings, and do you think this is also a warning, another warning for certain species to mix with other species in order to survive what's getting ready to come, if it's sun related?
It could, I believe so, because we all know that as far as when it comes to westernized dating preferences, a lot of stuff that they put in these movies is kind of like, I understand, like, we living in a time where they want to amalgamate other demographics with other demographics or whatever, but we all know what that's about. That's really about the ascension process when you're talking about the one drop of blood.
Right.
So you got to have a certain anatomy in order to survive the shift. That's why, the energy extraction matrix, the foundation of it is based on eugenics. And Henry Kissinger, he just died, right? And his whole thing was all about depopulation and eugenics, because he was a eugenicist and he was also a part of the plutocracy and things of that nature. So when you're talking about that whole aspect in itself, is really talking about genetical self-preservation, because whether the grid goes down or not, if you don't have carbon, because carbon is basically the building block of all civilization, and when it's able to copulate with ether, you can take on all forms of radiation. It could be a radiation that's being implemented by technology, or it can be radiation that's coming from the cosmos. It doesn't matter. So that's how that's how intelligent ether and carbon is. when it's amalgamated with the so-called black woman. But if you don't have that carbon, it can be detrimental to you for your anatomy. Just like in the movie, the younger boy, his teeth start to fall out because of the frequencies.
Right.
Because like I said, the sun, or if, like I said, whatever technology, it can break down your anatomy.
Mm-hmm. Somebody asked in the chat, did he already mention the ties to slavery?
Yeah, I only spoke a little bit about it, but from 1619, when you have talking about the White Lions, 1619 to 2019 was the end of the beatification period of the so-called 400-year curse. So that's when you had those missionaries. They came over here and they took us out of our sovereign capacity under ecclesiastical law with canon laws, because the church and the state is not separate. So that's how they took us out of our sovereign capacity, through false monotheistic religious systems, because the religion in itself is connected to the 1724 Black Christian codes. It's all based on the corporate war entity that puts us under the 14th Amendment, which is a fraudulent contract because it was never ratified. So like I said, all that stuff is connected to democracy. Like I said, now the end of the 400-year curse from 1619 to 2019, Donald Trump signed a second Declaration of Independence, which is based on the restoration of a republic, and a republic is galvanized by a matriarch. So that creates the fact that indigenous people are connected to a matriarchal civilization that dismantles the corporation in itself, because the corporation was created by the patriarchy aspect when you're talking about the Canaanites.
Shout out to my brother Kwame Sunhorse. I haven't talked to this brother in a while. Brother's always traveling. Shout out to that brother. He said it was prophesied that the white lines will return when humanity was on the verge of disaster. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that, BDELL?
That sounds, like I said, it's one of those things where it's a golden nugget in the movie. So like I said, so it's really talking about the reverberation and the liberation of a certain demographic of people. So with that being said, it could be one of those things where it can dismantle the sleep spell of Kingu, which is connected to the energy of the moon. And the moon is connected to patriarchy that subjugates the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So the white lion aspect is with the end of a corporation that was connected to their patriarchal corporation, is actually talking about the liberation of our people just based on celestial events that's taking place. Right.
Definitely. Give me some questions. I'm gonna start because I know a lot of y'all, the chat is super busy. BDELL is gonna be on for about an hour, then the brother KT is gonna come on. So I'm gonna let the last 15 minutes, I'm gonna let y'all rock out with questions, and we can all chop it up together. So give me some questions in the chat for my brother BDELL. All right. Somebody wants to know, BDELL, did you catch the kids' t-shirts obey NASA?
Yeah, I seen that. It was I seen that in the part when they was in the woods, it had obey NASA on there. That's because like a NASA is also connected to I think I forgot the term it was. I know they're connected to the sustainable development goals when you're talking about the World Economic Forum, because these are all the new corporations that's in place of the old corporations that basically dismantled in 2023 because they all filed Chapter 11. So you got NASA, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, military factions, all of these new organizations are basically in replace of the Vatican, in replace of the United States Corporation, in place of the Federal Reserve System. So one of those things where it's showing credence to NASA, which is also galvanized by the United Nations.
Okay, let's get to some more questions. They got a lot. Should we buy land and build bunkers? Also, should we move out of the USA?
No, I wouldn't say move out. We've been here. This is our this is the land of Tahu. This is the land of the indigenous people. But I would say, be very meticulous and and to not just pass off and castigate everything as far as like a conspiracy theory, because according to the timeline we've been living on, the timeline of eschatology, we've seen things that took place in movies, and then years later it actually happened in real time. So, I mean, if you have to build a bunker or buy land, if you feel like that's going to get you ahead, I mean, go on and do it.
Indeed. Somebody, and anybody know what the Spanish lady was panicking for?
I didn't really get too much out of that. It just looked like she was in a state of survival because she was stranded. But I don't speak Spanish, so I don't really know that, whatever she was saying. But I know that was during the course of the time when the guy, he had got those papers from the drone that said that America was basically going to be killed off, basically. Death to America. That's what the message was in Arabic writing.
Right.
And I also said, when the lady got the message, she said that it was also written in Chinese on another publication that they had when they got those messages in that little red paper, because we all know that China and Iran, they're basically allies. So you also could have a cyber attack to be implemented just based on that whole philosophy that they was propagating in the movie. Whether it can come from Iran or it can come from China.
Okay. Next, Conjure Queen. Shout out to Conjure Queen. She wants to know. Let's talk about the third notification that popped up on Julia Roberts' phone.
What was? I don't remember that part. What was?
I do not either.
I don't remember that part.
All right. Maybe in the chat, let us know what was going on with that in the chat. Next question: do we abandon the current system or do we revise it?
Oh, nature in itself is going to abandon the current system. So, like I said, this is a restoration process. This is the year 8. You got it's based on building and destroying. You have the building of the matriarch as you have the falling of patriarchy. Everything is one of those things where people have to divorce themselves from these misnomer titles, these misnomer nomenclature titles that connect you right back to their system.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You're not African American, you're not Black people, you know, whether you believe that or not, but it connects you right back to the 14th Amendment when you go to the federal laws and civil procedures. So in order to divorce the whole system in itself, you have to walk in the path of our real ancient history. You know what I'm saying? You got to tap into that energy, because according to the 1848 Supreme Court decision on June 6th, it tells you that the 5 civilized tribes is connected to the indigenous people, the Washita, the Yamasee. And then also, I forgot about this. When you go to the cyber attack map, when you go to, since we're talking about the Native American and the indigenous people, when you go to the cyber attack map, there's a QR code. When you scan the QR code, it takes you to West Virginia, and it's called Lake Shawnee. In Lake Shawnee, there was an amusement park, and it was built on top of Native American burial lands.
Right.
So, like I said, it's really showing you in real time that they're showing you that your so-called Black people are actually the real Native American indigenous people connected to this land. They got taken out of their sovereign capacity from the inception point of the white line hitting this geographical landmass. So it's one of those things where, like I said, you got to connect right back to the Republic. You got to connect back to the matriarch in order to divorce yourself from the current system.
Right. That seems to be a theme, BDELL, with a lot of the speakers that come on the platform, in terms of returning to this matriarchal energy, and getting rid of this patriarchal energy. And this is whether, it's the sisters on here or the brothers on here. It seems to be one of the main themes that are surrounding the conscious circuit right now, my brother. Very interesting. All right, let's get to the next question. What to do if you okay. What to do if you've been trying to get prepared, but life circumstances seem to keep getting in the way? This isn't about the movie. This is a personal question the brother's asking. All right.
I would say
You're good.
Try to dismantle anything that you have an emotional connection to try to control it, to where you can use your emotions as a navigation system. Don't let over emotionalism put you in a state of self-subjugation. So it's one of those things where you got to be operating from a place of balancement. So when you operate in a place of balancement, that way you can decipher and use your critical thinking skills before you put yourself in a state of emotionalism. So it's one of those things you got to have mind over matter. So like I said, everything, we all know that materialism, or your job and all these things that's connected to the material plane, we have an emotional connection to it, and it's not sustainable. But the only thing that's sustainable is you connecting to things that's not external. You got to go internal. So when certain things, as far as like family members that's pulling you back to where you trying to pull you back and connect you back to your old past, you have to basically divorce yourself from all that energy as well.
Right.
Because like I said, it's not going to put you in a state of evolution.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, graphic arts, and I'm glad BDELL answered that. I know a lot of people are going through that, have gone through that, and will go through that. It's a real life scenario that gets played out probably in every single one of our lives. So yeah, family. All right. Somebody says the movie warned you your biased perspective frames what you believe. What you believe may not be the truth. Discernment is not bias. What's your thoughts on this, BDELL?
Well, I mean, it's also being facilitated by something that they know that the great majority of the public is acclimated to, where if they believe in the political system, or if they believe in the economical system. But like I said, everything has a process of limited, expectations. Nothing in this world is, as far as like the three-dimensional matrix system or whatever, there's nothing sustainable behind it. Nothing is sustainable. Everything has an expiration date.
Indeed.
So your belief, it really doesn't matter.
Any geographical areas where chosen ones should start migrating to? I think they might have asked you this before, BDELL, in another show.
Man, I think Atlanta, that seemed like that's where the great majority of people have been relocating to. But as I was telling someone before, because you got a lot of people, as far as like your chosen ones, we are scattered all over the planet. And right. I think that's done, on purpose, from higher forces or whatever. And that's why sometimes it's kind of hard that's why you might be the only one in your city who thinks the way that you think, and you might get castigated for it or whatever. Or some people look at you at a supreme level, but you in that geographical landmass for a reason. That's because you're in that station point to raise up the vibrational frequency as the planet is going through a process of unity consciousness. So over time, when you have things like in the movie, when the planet was in a state of destabilization or whatever, eventually, everybody has to come together in order to maintain self-preservation.
Rod Hayes talked about a lot of the chiefs, or he used another word, but a lot of the real strong spirits decided to incarnate in this particular region that we call America. My question to you is, why do you think a lot of souls, why did the souls choose America to come down to really get shit popping? Everybody knows the USA is like on everybody's mind, whether you hate it or love it.
I really believe that, this is not to, castigate other demographics and races or whatever, but I really believe that this geographical landmass is actually the Holy Land. So like it's just based on logic. Like where's your African Michael Jordan? Where's your African Michael Jackson? Where's your African, we got all these great figures and everything that come from this geographical landmass. Some of your best thinkers on the planet come from this geographical landmass when you're talking about America. And I don't think that's done by accident. And then when you look at, monolithic structures, you have 2,000 pyramids in the Americas versus the ones over in Africa and the Middle East. They only have like 250. So I really believe it's one of those things where this geographical area is one of those things is supposed to be the inception point in order to raise up the vibrational frequency of the planet when you're talking about this unity consciousness.
Right.
That's why, I see other people, in Africa, most of the people in Africa and in different countries, a lot of them, even though they were, the great majority of that geographical area was colonized, you see a lot of them are Christians. You know what I'm saying? And then when I talk to one of them, they don't even understand what I'm talking about. So it's one of those things where I think this land is actually the real holy land of the real chosen people. And it starts with us first in order to get this whole great awakening popping.
BDELL, somebody asked, I can't find the chat moving so fast, but they asked about the financial system. Are you a fan of cryptocurrency? Should people be saving their dollars and their coins, or should they migrate over to cryptocurrency? What's your thoughts about the financial system?
Well, I really don't get into the crypto stuff or whatever, but by any means, for anybody who's connected to that energy, get your coins. But I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket, because it's like in a movie. The guy, I think he was like an investor on Wall Street or whatever, and he said that the whole system in itself, as far as like this corporate system, it operates on curves. And he was said that he knew something was going to take place before it actually happened. So when you're talking about this whole crypto control system, the financial system in itself, it doesn't really have no type of sustainability to it. So that's why in the movie, in order for the young boy to get the medicine, they had to give the man cash, because liquid cash in itself still has a little power, even if you had the grid system goes down. So it's important to have, if you got money in the bank, do that if that's your thing, but keep some liquid cash because it still has energy to it. Because you might have to barter with it when the grid goes down. Who knows?
All right. We have been taught since 2020 not to react to the system. Here we are reacting to Hollywood predictive programming. What happened to intuition? Is this real life?
I mean, well, I'm not sure if you was listening at the beginning of the show, but it's one of those things where, you got to look at the movies with a metaphysical eye, because I told you the CIA has an office in Hollywood and Hollywood has an office in the CIA. So a lot of stuff that's taking place in these movies is actually happening in real time. Because, they showed you in Contagion in a movie, and then the Draconian juice came out in 2020, and then people was like, oh, they got mad because the world was locked down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the same thing is actually going to be taking place. It's a precursor to it, because they said in the World Economic Forum said that we're going to have a cyber attack in 2 years. We're going to have a blackout. And that was back in 2021. So like I said, and then we're segueing into solar cycle 25. So a lot of stuff that can be taking place.
Yeah, I would say to this individual, when we both look at the same thing, we see different things. We may be looking at the same thing, but we may be seeing and interpreting and perceiving something different. I was actually inspired by a lot of things in this movie, and me and you have a different soul and a different spirit. So maybe you didn't get inspired at all. But if I'm inspired by something, it's a good thing for me. It's a good thing for my soul. It's a good thing for my spirit. But I just think differently from you. So we're all not going to see the same thing. You may look at me and think I look a certain way. Another female may look at me and think something completely different. So, it's all about perception, and that's obviously your perception, and more power to you. But here we are discussing our perception. All right. All right, here goes Kwame Sunhorse wants to know Watson Break. Oh no, I guess it's just a Watson Break is an archaeological site in present day Ouachita Parish, Louisiana, from the Archaic period dated to about 5,400 years ago. All right, so that's just a statement. That's not a question. All right, let's get to another. Does the blue room in the beginning have any significance? Her dress also.
Deep state. Deep state shadow government. Because remember in the movie, that was basically showing credence to the Blue House. And the blue house, like I said, is based on the embodiment when you understand the Freemasonic order of the Scottish Rite or the York Rite. So you had, it was showing you credence of the deep state. The deep state is the shadow government, and the shadow government is democracy. And democracy is being controlled by Canaanites. Those are the ones you're talking about, the cursed seed under Levitical law, when you're talking about the biblical context and things of that nature. So that's what it's basically showing credence to. So the blue room is actually showing credence to this. I think it was in Maui. Remember in Hawaii they had all those blue roofs, and all the blue roofs the houses didn't get touched.
Yeah.
So, like I said, so that's how you know a lot of these psychological operations is being implemented by the deep state. This is your shadow government. Because like I tell people all the time, the best, it's very simplistic on how you can decipher if the deep state is actually a de facto corporation. You in third grade, first grade, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, it says to the republic. It did not say to the democracy. That's that's the diametrical difference. There's no such thing as democracy.
Okay, next question, BDELL. What did the picture changing in the living room represent? The black and white picture.
I don't remember that part.
All right, let's get to another one. Somebody said, "Did you see the alien eyes in the bushes?" Y'all spying a lot.
Yeah, I seen that, but I don't know if it was like insinuating on the fact that we're going to have, some type of galactical beings coming, from a different star system and visiting us or whatever during that time period. So, I mean, it kind of the Cosmic Slop movie shows you that when the planet was like in chaos, and then you had these beings that came down and took all the so-called blacks away.
Indeed. Yeah, we're about to wrap it up, BDELL. I got KT in the background.
Okay.
We just wrapped up the hour. Anything you want to leave the people with as we close out, BDELL, in terms of this movie and in terms of moving forward in this dimension, my brother?
Don't get so caught up into consciousness and spirituality to the point where you're not able to decipher something real from something being as far as a psychological operation. Sometimes you need to look at certain movies. Sometimes you need to read certain publications. Sometimes you got to give your energy to something and use it as an alchemical resource in order to reap the benefits of true reality, to see the true light. So like I said, this movie, it might be fear-mongering to you, but it might be edification for the next person. So like I said, just use your spiritual eye and look at these movies with a metaphysical eye to decipher what's going to be taking place. I wouldn't, like I said, just don't be. I'm not saying be scared and things of that nature, but at the same time, just be critical and use your logical skills in order to decipher what's really going on.
Indeed. What's your how can they reach out to you, brother, and hear more of your material?
Okay, you can go to my YouTube channel at BDELL1014. BDELL1014. That's my nomenclature title on Instagram. Also, I'm Bridell Rice Bay on Facebook as well.
Indeed. All right, my brother. I appreciate it. Coming on, dropping, and as always, my brother,
it's coming down from the fourth dimension. So when you have these UFOs in our atmosphere, they're basically terraforming the atmosphere to the point where it can basically dematerialize everything that's in the magnetic field. So this is where the open vortex comes in, right? That fourth dimensional energy comes in. So with the UFOs that we see in our atmosphere, what it does is it manipulates the magnetic field and the electrical grid. So this is why you had that plane that dropped down in Alabama yesterday.
Right.
That's how you have a diametrical difference from a real UFO and a UFO that's being galvanized and facilitated by the aristocracy. So a real UFO has the ability to manipulate the electromagnetic grid, right? UFOs are shooting down, that's all being facilitated by the government. So that's how you know the thing that's manipulating the matrix system, that is a real UFO. So that's why I tell people it's very imperative for them to stay off these airplanes. If you want to go somewhere as far as on a trip or whatever, it's imperative that you travel, through car, because you don't want to, when the grid shuts down, because the grid is basically acclimated to all technological devices on the planet. So when the grid shuts down, everything shuts down as far as your molecular structure. And also that also applies to nanogenetic mind control when you're talking about these genetically modified foods, when they put these technologies inside of our body. So that's all connected to the grid system. So that's why they, during this time when they know that the sun is at solar maximum, when you're talking about the open vortex, that fourth dimensional energy coming in, what it does is it has the ability to cause a reconfiguration in your mental capacity and in your genetical sequence.
Tell the people what exactly happened with the sun. It was in the beginning of February. Something happened, a piece of the sun. What exactly happened, BDELL?
So what that is basically colossal coronal mass ejections. So the reason we having this these concepts of war and things of that nature with China, when you're talking about the spy balloon, they want you. They're trying to perpetuate an EMP attack when really everything is galvanized by CME. So an EMP is really basically the same thing, but it's based on the technological level, because the third eye for the beast is technology. So what they do is they know that when you have an activation of the sun, it has the ability to cause pestilence. It can cause, a malfunction in the in the governmental systems, because everything they do is based on astrological alignments. So that's what I'm saying. As far as like the seismic activity and things of the nature, the cymatic frequencies of the coronal mass ejections is manipulating everything on planet Earth right now. So that's what's going on. So when you're talking about these the UV radiation like spectrum, when it speeds up in vibration, it basically breaks down everything that's connected to the material world.
But they said a vortex opened up with this on the sun. What's that about? That's
the vortex. That is basically the inception point of the purification period of when the fourth dimensional energy is going to be coming in, because we were talking about the plutonium energy on the last time we was talking about. Because that plutonium energy is coming in. So when you have Pluto in Aquarius during after the spring equinox, that is basically the inception point, that vortex to open up on the sun. That's the inception point of when that energy is going to be coming in. That's the gamma radiation that's basically going to put the planet in a state of desolation, because in order to get revitalization, the planet has to go through a state of calamity first.
What does this gamma radiation do to our bodies, our minds, our souls? If it's doing that to the planet, what is it doing to our bodies at this time?
Well, through the law of correspondence, we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So what it does is it activates the prominences of the etherium realm, right? So it activates the 7 neurological circuits within the brain. So what happens is with the sun, it activates I forgot what sun heat genes, and the sun heat genes basically causes these granulations, because we're basically amalgamated that's connected to everything on the planet through atomic fusion, because carbon is the building block of all civilization. So as the planet is going through a terraforming process, we're going to terraform with the planet also, because we're made of carbon.
Indeed.
So that's basically the same thing as far as like your genetical sequence is being manipulated, just like planet Earth is being manipulated. It has to go through a revitalization process. So if your vibration is not matching with the planet, it can be detrimental for you.
So depending on where your vibration is, you could be experiencing different symptoms.
Yes. So that's why, they trying to create this this anomaly that we have in train derailments. All this is all acclimated to a form of pestilence, because they want to engineer a new form of a shutdown. They want to shut down everything, talking about everybody is getting sick, because that's why they got these toxic wastes and every three is really based on and galvanized by the war with the mind. So when you have a war with the mind, because they know that the fourth dimensional energy is coming in, and that's the mental plane, which is the ethereal plane, which is the God frequency that activates the God body, right? When we were talking about the Holy Ghost particles. And the reason they do that is because they know that God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses elements of matter to express yourself. So when you're able to express yourself mentally, you're able to manipulate the vibration on the planet. So that's basically what's going on right now, because it's basically a war with the mind.
what's happening on the planet right now with this fourth dimensional energy coming through, is this something that happens frequently, or is this something that hasn't happened in a long time on the planet, what we're witnessing right now?
Well, the planet went through many different destructional phases. So what's happening right now, you have when I'm talking about this open vortex,
Yeah.
you had the Philadelphia experiment that happened in 1943. That's when these naval intelligence officers they basically made a naval ship dematerialize in the atmosphere, and it jumped it all the way up to 40 years ahead of time in 1983 in Montauk, New York, when you're talking about the Montauk Project. So with that experiment in itself, it basically manipulated the fragment of time, and it threw off the planet by 3 years, because from 1940 to 50 and 60 and so on and so forth, you had these fourth dimensional portals that opened up naturally on the planet. So now the fragment of time that has been manipulated. So it goes from 1943 to 53 all the way up into 2023 now. So that's why the Galactic Federation, they gave the plutocracy and the oligarchs, they gave them the technology to build CERN, because CERN was originally made to put the planet right back in balance. So, but they use it for devilishment when they open up these portals, so they can have archonic energy come to the planet to basically have some type of self-preservation in the three-dimensional paradigm, because they want the matrix system to keep going.
So let me ask you this, BDELL. If the Galactic Federation gave them the technology of CERN, we all know who this devil is that we deal with on a consistent basis in this realm. You mean to tell me they didn't know that they was going to get tricked by these folks, that the parasitic elite? They really thought the devil was going to use CERN for the better of humanity?
I mean, I'm pretty sure they pretty much, gave them a chance, but everybody, we have, free will to do,
Yeah.
do what's right.
I'm just joking. Because
Right,
I'm like that. Yeah. But wow, I heard. Let me see something real quick, BDELL. I heard, didn't CERN just turn on the machine and something happened? Like, let me see if I see several. No, I thought I read an article that said CERN recently. Let me just give me 1 second. While I'm doing this, hold up, y'all. Okay, no. All right. Yeah, I was just checking. I want to make sure something, y'all. All right. So what now? This, I mean, just like the last time you got on here, when you get on the show, you take off running, brother, and you don't waste no time, and you get right to it. And I appreciate that. That makes it, information is good. You make information very interesting, and that's important for our people to be and not be boring to our people. Our people, we're in this era of being stimulated by everything. So I feel as though the way you present information makes people want to tune in and listen. They don't have to tune into the garbage. They could get stimulated by this amazing cosmic information that you present to the people. So I appreciate that, my brother. I want to talk about now, since you're talking about the Galactic Federation, and I want to talk about the Anunnaki, because you mentioned the Anunnaki on your channel, and somebody else said, I heard a couple of people say, yo, the Anunnaki's returning. Yo, the Anunnaki did this. I'm like, what the Anunnaki got to do with what's going on now? I got to talk to Billy Cost to see what's going on. So talk what's up with the Anunnaki, brother? What they got to do with this?
So the Anunnaki has a lot to do with everything right now. So that's why you're seeing many different UFOs in our atmosphere, right? So this is all, like, I did a video talking about the 7-year tribulation period, because 2023 is the inception point of when everything is supposed to be going through a transitional process, right? Because everything is acclimated to the sun cycle, and the sun cycle is connected to a matriarchal energy. So everything right now, as far as the UFOs, they're terraforming the atmosphere to give the planet right back to the seeds of Enki, who got the birthright stolen from the seeds of Enlil, who is connected to the black nobility. So I just did a video not too long ago talking about the delineation between the fezzes versus feathers. So that's all, basically the indigenous people of the planet versus the black nobility, the blackamoors, who basically stole our birthrights through theological, spiritual systems and things of that nature that's acclimated to the socio-political aspect of civics and things of that nature. So also when you're talking about these UFOs, these fourth dimensional energies is coming in, that is creating the open vortex to where they can come in from the 19th galaxy, right? Because the inception point of where the Galactic Federation comes from, or the Anunnaki, these Riskians, they come from the 19th galaxy, the 8th planet. So what they're doing is when you see like red iron oxide clouds in our atmosphere, that is basically a symbology of destruction and calamity, because the planet has to go through a cleansing process. So everything is being reconstructed to go back into its original state. So that's why, you know, a lot of people are not understanding this whole phenomenon about UFOs, because UFOs, they're able to dematerialize and go into fourth octave ether, because they work on an anti-gravity reactor, because it has its own gravitational field. So when you see these UFOs, they're basically terraforming the atmosphere that basically manipulates the magnetic field. The magnetic field depletes the ozone layer, and the ozone layer, that's when you have that fourth dimensional energy coming in. So everything right now that's taking place is based on the sun cycle, because everything that was galvanized by the matrix system, by the oligarchs, happened during the Piscean age under a Saturnian energy.
So the UFOs are basically causing what they call global warming. Is that what they said?
Yeah. This because it's like I said, because it has the ability to manipulate the grid. So the grid is based on a magneto-hydrodynamic photon holographic reality. So the photons is what is created by subatomic particles that are cube shaped. So what it's doing is basically dematerializing the atmosphere to where you can have this heat come down and terraform everything on the planet. So that's where you get your whole concept of global warming. So because it's that fourth dimensional energy coming in.
BDELL, this shit sound like a sci-fi movie, man. This is some wild, interesting shit. I ain't gonna lie to you. This is some wild, interesting information, and wow, it sounds like a sci-fi movie, my brother. So you said they what's up with you know, so much talk about Inky and Lil from a lot of people in the YouTube community as of the last couple of years. What's up with them now? Where they at now? If the Galactic Federation wants to return the planet back to the seeds of Inky, where's Inky and where's Enlil at this present moment?
Well,
or is that a collective consciousness? I'm like, what is that exactly?
Well, the seeds of Enlil, well, the best way I can explain it, well, the seeds of Enlil, you can tell who they are. They put themselves in governmental systems. They control any form of monotheistic religion. They're inside organizations, the Boule Society, and things of that nature. So Enlil himself, he came down, I think it was like in the 1980s or whatever. There's a publication that's been put out talking about how he came down and he was worshipped inside this village and things of that nature. As far as Inky is not on the planet, because there's this god that they call him King Yahweh. But when you understand the etymology of the tetragrammaton, Yahweh means agreeable and disagreeable. Inky would never call himself Yahweh. That's a term for Enlil. So that's the difference between the two, because it means agreeable and disagreeable, half Anunnaki, half Draconian reptilian.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I asked this to a couple of my guests, and I like to hear different perspectives on it, because there's such a phenomenon happen with everybody. And I don't think I asked you this the first time. That I asked you about the ringing in the ears, because that's like happening at an all-time high right now.
Yeah, you asked me that the last time.
What did you say? I forgot. What did you say, my brother?
What I said was it's basically kind of like it's like a signal. It's like a phone. It's like a phone call trying to signal you in. So, and when you get a lot of ringing in the ears, the best thing to do is to meditate, to receive that energy. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when you a lot of people don't reap the benefits of their prayers and things of that nature, is because when they pray, you put your affirmations and your blessings out into the ethers. You're supposed to meditate to receive the energy. That's the difference. So when you get these ringing in the ears, you're basically trying to channel in a message. You're supposed to be in a state of meditation to receive that fourth and fifth dimensional energy that's trying to, channel in with you.
You know, when I was young, and I want to salute you. You a young brother bringing this information, so you're younger than me. But when I was young and television ruled the world, it wasn't the internet. They used to disrupt the television program, and they used to say, "This is a test from the emergency broadcasting center,"
Mm-hmm.
and then it would go, and that sounds like the shit in our ears. So, do you think that was a form of programming when they used to play that on television? Do you think that's a form of programming? Because it sounds like what a lot of people's hearing in the ear.
Yeah, because they know, especially when it comes to so-called black people, uh, they know that the octave vibration in the frequency has a certain cymatic, and it's acclimated to the carbon, and carbon is a derivative of graphene, which is connected to melamine formaldehyde, so it's able to absorb all those frequencies to where this is how intelligent melanin or carbon is. It's able to become acclimated to anything, whether it's positive or negative. It's kind of like, you ever seen the movie Meteor Man?
Yes.
Remember when he was able to galvanize his metaphysical powers? When he touched that comet, anything that he touched, that became acclimated to his characteristics of who he was as a superhero, whether if it was positive or negative. He'd touch a book and he absorb all the information. So that's what the same thing does when it comes to these sound wave frequencies. It becomes acclimated to who we are, whether it's positive or negative. It can basically terraform the melanocytes in our molecular structure.
Indeed. So, you know how, I'm not going to, when 2020 hit and that thing broke out, and I'm not going to say the name because they were shutting everybody's channel down.
Definitely.
But you know what I mean? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Another conversation that was happening simultaneously was the 5G conversation. And they was shutting people down for that as well. But and then a lot of conscious folks were saying how 5G was going to mess us up a lot. Now, is 5G, say we go to 6G, 7G, 8G, is that the same way with our melanin, where our melanin will adapt to wherever the technology goes, no matter how bad it is for us, our melanin will adapt and it will actually start to benefit us more than it will start to hurt us because of our melanin? And that example you gave with Meteor Man?
It depends on if you have any type of nanogenetic mind control that's inside, your neurological capacity. So what it's able to do is, when you have these 5G frequencies, when it's able to when they intensify it, and you have these basic these metals inside your molecular structure, what it's able to do is, this is where you get this concept of zombification. So when you have nanogenetic mind control stem or receivers inside your body from genetically modified foods, or whether you take in the Jabberwocky, I call it the draconian juice. So what it's able to do is, when you have these 5G frequencies, it becomes acclimated to those metals to where it can basically take over your avatar. So now while at the same time, when you have these fourth dimensional energies coming in, when you have the UV radiation light spectrum speeds up in vibration and it activates the sun, what it does is it breaks down those metals inside your brain capacity and inside your molecular structure. So this, like I said, it coincides with zombification, because they know at the time of when the sun is at solar maximum around 2025, they know that we're going to have another form of pestilence again, when you're talking about the what.
Yeah.
So what happens is the nanotechnology that's connected to the 5G frequency, it dematerializes the two frontal lobes of the brain, and it puts a strain on the hypothalamus gland, which activates the frequency of hunger. So that's why they said that in 2025, the pole shift can activate cannibalism.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow, man. So in terms of let's talk about in terms of sun, the amount of sun we're getting at this time. Do you think that's probably the most important thing we should be engaging in right now, is sun activity and getting as much sunlight as possible?
Yeah, most definitely, because the more sun you get, like I said, it causes a reconfiguration. Because I think in my last video, I was telling people how you got many different forms of intrinsic metals. So even if you bend a metal out of shape, when it's acclimated to intrinsic solar radiation or just heat in general, what it's able to do is able to reconstruct back into its original form. So the same thing happens to our molecular structure, because we have every element inside of our body. When you're talking about the periodic table, we have all these, monatomic gold, intrinsic metals. It's all inside of our molecular structure. So this is where you have the unraveling of the junk DNA. It's basically the same concept. So you're supposed to get as much heat as possible when you're out in the sun.
Indeed.
Absorb all that solar radiation. Because the reason I say that also is also connected to the fact that everything right now is being manipulated in a form of biochemical warfare. So it's going to be to a point where you're going to have to perform ultra fast internal conversion, to where you're going to have to transmute yourself by being a breatharian. I don't know if everybody's ready for that whole concept yet, but it's going to get there one day, to where you're not going to be able to eat or drink anything, because everything is basically going to be compromised for biochemical warfare. Because I told you the wars with the mind, because we entering the mental plane, the ethereal plane, the fourth dimension.
Now, you mentioned the Galactic Federation, and people hear that term, but I want you to let us know, who does that comprise of? It sounds like an amazing name, but who exactly? We hear the Anunnaki, but the Galactic Federation sounds like a group. So who is this group running around making all these decisions, terraforming the skies and this and that? Who are these people?
Well, you have Riskians, and then you also have some of the Yagigi. You got the Dogons. That was when you're talking about the Dogon tribe of Mali, who taught them how to map out the stars way before NASA was created. You also have Andromedans. You got some good ones of those. You have Anunnaki, and then you have you got some Nubarians. Then you also have some Xylanthians. You got many different. It's an amalgamation of many different extraterrestrial groups that basically work with the Galactic Federation. But the inception point of it all is galvanized by the Riskians. You also got Lyrans. The Lyrans are the cat people, so that's why you got the Sphinx in Egypt, which is also in alignment with the Leo star constellation as well. So
the Sphinx is from the Lyrians?
Yeah.
So why did they put that here? Why did they put that there, the Sphinx?
Well, because they know that, I'm saying, like, the cats are they're able to look inside two different dimensional realities at the same time. They can be in the three-dimensional state in the physical, but they're able to be in the fourth dimension as well, just based upon the construction of the frequency of their eyes, because they have the same eye construction as a reptile. So like I said, you have as far as on the disagreeable side, you have Draconians. Then when I'm talking about the Majestic 12, you got Draconians. Then you have Pleiadians, and then you have Greys, and then you got Draconian Greys. So you got many different species of extraterrestrial races right now that's fighting over the planet. And then you got extraterrestrials inside. When you're talking about the Dayros, who are detrimental robotoids, then you got Teros, and then you also have the Shiyuk and the Danakil tribe, who live inside the planet. That's where Yaqub comes from when you're talking about Jacob of the Bible.
So how do this group that was okay? You gonna make people do a lot of research tonight, BDELL, for real. You're gonna have me looking up Lyrians and this and that.
Michael Jackson been putting it in our faces for a long time. Because a lot of the Galactic Federation, they got two different forms. They can basically dematerialize and shapeshift into a cat. I think it was Remember the Time. Michael Jackson did that. Because a lot of the Egyptian pharaohs during that time, there's a lot of anomalies and stuff.
So they use cats to spy on this dimension. You know how like we send robots to Mars and all this rovers and shit like that. That's what they use cats for. Like the cat is down here and they're looking through the cat. Like, okay, is that what they're doing? Because that's just what
it's a possibility. Because
like whoa.
Because they're able to live on two different dimensional planes based upon the construction of the eyeball.
Wow. You mess with cats? You got a cat, brother?
No, I don't have any cats.
Okay. Wow, man. Yeah, cats are like spies. Yeah, they like spies for extra dimension. Wow, like I said, we gonna be doing a lot of research after this, y'all. So what races are these people, the Riskians and this one and the Greys, are they brothers and sisters? Are there some that are like I see some that are like blonde hair, blue eyes. You see these gray beings. Is that all fantasy, or are these like brothers and sisters up there when you talk about all these different groups?
Well, the vast majority of them are melanated.
Uh,
But you also got many different groups that that stem from them, because when you understand microbiology and genealogy, you get the recessive from the dominant. You don't get the dominant from the recessive. So all these extraterrestrial races are a derivative of the carbonated, melanated Anunnaki beings. So, like I said, you got some. Matter of fact, there's a video on my page. It was a guy who died, and he went into the ethers, and he was shown these beings. He said the great majority of them are black people, and they were the ones in control of the ones. It's kind of like when you look at the hieroglyphics in Samaria, or you look at the hieroglyphics in Egypt, when you had the cat head people, then you got the bird head people. He was saying that there's a lot of them that have the same configuration, and they got the humanoid animals, but they're all being galvanized by a certain group of black extraterrestrials.
You know, I heard I was on Instagram, and on one of some Instagram posts was saying that the '90s movie about the cone heads. Remember the cone heads? They said that's actually based on a extraterrestrial group. Have you ever heard anything about that? The cone heads?
Yeah, they call the Sini tribe.
Sini?
The Sini tribe. You got the
Okay.
Sini tribe that lives inside the planet, and they're basically the police force of the Dayros, because the Dayros was grafted out of the Tayros. The Sini and the Tayro are basically the same thing. They just got two different nomenclature titles. So the Tayro are actually the conehead beings, and that's Yaqub's mother, Jacob of the Bible. His mother